another episode of Hawk Talk on this wonderful Wednesday, as I am joined by a esteemed crew of Creston, Austin, Zach, Brendan, and Mason. How are we doing here today, guys?
Pretty good. Doing fantastic.
Yeah, you guys sound thrilled.
Hump day, middle of the week.
Yeah, it's also a holiday. I'm pretty sure everybody's least favorite holiday, unless that's just me. But anyways, we're going to get right into the obscure sport of the day, which is, well, I don't know if it's an exact sport per se. It's more like a collection of sports, but it's classified as the Lumberjack Games. There's like a whole slew that you've probably seen online, many to do with an axe, some with a saw, and all to do with wood. But Creston, do you want to start out with your research? Because I know that you were digging deep into the online portion of it.
Yeah, I just kind of got a little lost in the YouTube algorithm of Lumberjack Games. And I just got to say, it's absolute chaos. The amount of things that these people can do, and women, obviously. But it's just amazing. Like watching people axe throw, which seems like a very easy thing to do, but at the skill that they can do it. Log rolling, I know that's a very niche thing and is very impressive. The thing that stood out to me though was the origin story that I read. Basically what I read was these lumberjacks would have nothing to do at the camps that they were at, and the way they got paid was by production. And so they would kind of have arguments obviously about who would be the best at their job. And so that would be their own little lumberjack games. And then they would go to other camps and start competing against different camps. And then it just started to become bigger and bigger until it got to what it is today.
And that's, I actually didn't know that. And that's actually one of my favorite reasons of why we have the obscure segment here on Hawk Talk 91.7 The Edge WSUW Whitewater, is because you learn stuff that you, might have known, but not entirely. The origin of it is a little bit different. I didn't realize how old it was, from the 1890s, which is pretty crazy. I didn't know it was that old, but it also started with just lumberjacks using their skills on the side, matching up with the other person, and then I guess it just caught on from there. But, to me, that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I have as well seen it on YouTube or whatever. You're just scrolling. I think it's pretty dangerous, to be honest. You've got saws and you're trying to go as fast as you can. If that gets stuck, there goes your hand.
Yep.
I think it's pretty cool and funny how talented these people are. It's just a little random, being able to put in those little wedges and climb up a tree as fast as you can. I don't know when you're gonna use that skill, but I think it's a pretty fun thing, and seeing that the first Lumberjack World Championship was in Hayward, Wisconsin. Was pretty cool. So it's a nice hometown kind of sport.
Yeah, and fun fact is that that's actually where my family's reservation is, and every time I go to visit, I would see the arena that they're in, never used. Nobody's ever there, because every time that I'm not there, it's not going on. There's no advertising for it or anything. So I never got to see it, but I know where it is. I actually didn't know that that was the first place. I know it's been going on for 64 years, but that's crazy.
Yeah, it happened in 1960. Was the first.
Wow, that's amazing. And how do you even find out that you're good at that kind of stuff? You just go in the backyard with an axe and you're like, hey, I could get paid for this.
Maybe you're a lumberjack and your boss keeps giving you a raise and you realize, I need to go to the World Championships for this.
Yeah, I haven't met or heard of a lumberjack at all.
Yeah, well, it's certainly obscure, but I think the athleticism that's required is probably more than, honestly, some sports. You have all these different events, like we said, the log rolling, log climbing, log chopping, axe throwing, sawing, all these different things. I was looking at the records, actually, on the website of the championships, and I found it interesting. There was a couple people that really stood out. Men's all-around wins set by Jason Wynyard in 2012, 16 wins. So across all the events, he won 16 of them in 1 year. And then for the women, we have 9 wins by Nancy Zalewski, and also in 2012. So I figured that was really interesting. And then we also have in the boom run, which is where they run across the logs. Obviously, that's extremely difficult because they're all like spinning all the time. There was a brother-sister tandem, Will and Abby Holschler, in 2011 that still hold the record to this day.
Wow. And those first two people that you mentioned, they were both in 2012?
Yes, both in 2012.
Okay, do you know what games that they were exceeding best in, or not offhand?
All it had was all-around wins,
Yeah.
so I assume they dominated in pretty much everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wish there was like more of an awareness for these kind of sports, because like if you have this in a wipeout kind of scenario, I guarantee people are going to watch it a lot more. And plus, I don't think there's a way to watch this other than going to the event or looking it up on YouTube. I mean, I could be wrong. There could be some obscure website that you could just watch it on, but I've never heard of it before.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because around like 2 years ago, just randomly scrolling through TV one night on like Fox Sports 4 or whatever, I actually saw Lumberjack games.
Oh, what?
And they did the wedges into the tree and climbing up the tree and everything, and it was really cool and exciting. Upon you like sending it out, I had no idea that's what it was, did some further research, and it turns out that's what it was. A lot of, if you look up the definition of obscure, it's this event with all the different log rolling and all that jazz, and it'll be in Hayward, Wisconsin again this year, August 1st through the 3rd, so I might have to check it out this year.
Yeah, you and me both, man. I mean, I didn't know that was on Fox.
Yeah, it was like 1 in the morning, just scrolling through, couldn't find anything to go on, and I just happened to see climbing a tree, and I was like, what the heck is this?
Oh my gosh, dude, that is awesome. Now, all right, that might make me want to get cable again just to have that kind of experience.
Just to be able to watch some
Yeah.
high-quality lumberjacking.
Yep, at 1 a.m.
So I've actually been in Hayward when it has occurred.
Lucky.
So I was actually like across the street. There was like a golf cart kind of experience across the street. So we were there always in like July for like a family vacation up at one of the resorts there. And they would be always going on across the street, and we'd be like, what is all that noise? And then like towards the end, when we stopped going to Hayward, it was always being set up and everything. So there would be people in and out and in and out and in and out. I had the same fun fact about the brother and sister from 2011. But it's insane when you go up there and like see it being, actually occurring. I remember there was so many people there, and it's like one of the biggest reasons why Hayward is so big.
Wow. So do you have a favorite game that you saw when you went to go?
I would probably say boom run, just because it's so like. I would probably say boom run or like log rolling. Log rolling just because it's like two people trying to knock each other off the log and into the water, and then like boom run, they're going across like 7 logs and everything, and some logs might be a little bit more slippery than others just because somebody's fallen off, there's water on them and everything, and then like you go back, you have to go across it twice because you go around a corner against a kind of like a pail and then you go back. So those were my favorite when I went there.
Wow. And do you know if like how they manage the scores there? Like, is there judges?
I would assume so.
Yeah.
That was like when I was younger I went there, but there's like obviously like timed events like boom run and everything, but log rolling, it's obvious who wins because one's in the water and one's obviously not.
Yeah. Well, that's still pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've never met anybody that went to see it either, so that's cool that you were able to share that firsthand experience. But without further ado, we're going to move into our second topic of the day, which is head coach heaven. This offseason, we were talking about it right before the show, that this is probably the most frequent, I guess you could say, of hiring of coaches in the NFL in quite some time. I believe there was like at least maybe most at 10 coaches. Some big headlines were the Falcons getting Raheem Morris. Austin's pretty happy about that. The Seahawks got Mike McDonald, and just a slew of other names that were spread across. But we're gonna talk about some of the more impactful ones, as well as two possible Hall of Fame coaches and one very credible coach that has not been on a team yet. Mason, would you like to start with who you have the biggest hopes for in their new job?
I would probably go with Mike McDonald. Just
Yes, thank you
because
so much.
He's the youngest head coach in the league now, and you can look at like Baltimore's defense last year, like their linebacker and their DB unit. Of course, towards the end of last year, like their DB, they had to go down to like their 6th and 7th corners, and guys like that were still producing. Guys like Kyle Hamilton, Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith, they were huge impacts for Ravens defense that led the NFL in scoring defense, sacks, and turnovers. That was the first time that ever happened in the history of the NFL. But he's obviously come from the college ranks, and he was even coaching high school a few years ago. He went to Michigan, was their linebackers coach, defensive coordinator, was just in Baltimore for 2 years before he got this gig. I think it's a really good pairing with John Schneider, their GM. They've been trying to infuse the defense with talent, youth, like guys like Devin Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen, their edge rushers. They've been trying to push those guys towards the edge, spending multiple day 2 picks on that. So he's someone I really want to look out for and hope that Seattle does really well.
Absolutely, and it definitely helps that he's going to have a completely fresh coaching staff with him.
Yeah.
There's only one person that has stayed with the Seahawks from the Pete Carroll era, and that is, I believe his name is Carl Scott. He almost went to the Eagles, but the day of that he signed with them, he went back. And I'm really excited to see how this whole team, especially with the signing of Ryan Grubb, is going to be with that offense. I'm really hoping that we get Michael Penix Jr. in the draft. It's not going to happen because we're at 16 and there's like probably 5 other teams that need a quarterback.
They're saying he might not go until like day 2 because of the injuries.
That is a thing that I was looking at was his injuries. That's probably his biggest downfall. But, I mean, if teams are willing to take that chance on him, I have a feeling the Seahawks are going to be one of those teams. Just because of Geno Smith didn't really have the best year. He kind of had a down year, in my opinion. Kind of picked it up towards the end there, but it was just not entirely the best for him, especially, and he shouldn't have gone to the Pro Bowl. I completely forgot that he went to the Pro Bowl. But I could yap about them the whole time, but I won't because I know y'all aren't the biggest Seahawks fans.
Isn't half the staff for Seattle now from Washington from last year too? There's a good portion.
Yeah, there is a good chunk that are not there anymore. I actually forgot about that too. Wow. But anyways, Brendan, is there a head coach in mind for you?
So to go off what you said real quick, I really love
Yes.
the Mike McDonald hired.
Oh,
I think
yes.
it was
I love this.
fantastic. I love younger coaches heading the league. When McVay first got hired, the Rams ran that perfectly, and especially with the defensive-minded coach and what Seattle has now, I think it's perfect. The coach that I selected is a little bit more under the radar. I'm a Titans fan, so I'm going to have to go with Brian Callahan. He was the offensive coordinator in Cincinnati, as well as the quarterback coach in Denver under Peyton Manning. So, I mean, he worked with the Super Bowl Peyton Manning era. He's developed Joe Burrow. And with a young budding quarterback star, who I think will be one of the best in the future, top of the AFC, with Callahan and Levis together, I think we're going to see something truly special in Nashville. Finally, we're going to have an offensive-minded head coach. I loved Vrabel. He brought that defensive spirit, but it's a new NFL. You need to score points to win. Ultimately, 16.5 points per game isn't going to cut it. Between Levis and Tyjae Spears, Brian Callahan's going to make this offense amazing, and the Titans are going to win the AFC South next year.
Wow, that's a bold statement. I disagree with that, but that's a debate for another time.
I am a giant Will Levis fan. I think
I
with
do
DeAndre
like him, yeah.
Hopkins, Tyjae Spears, we had the 7th pick in the draft this year. I think we're going to go Joe Alt at offensive line, or now sources are saying Brock Bowers wants to come to Tennessee.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be Brady DeGronk 2.0, but I digress. We'll get there next season.
I can't believe we're going against CJ Stroud and the Texans,
Yeah.
man.
That's
It's our
crazy.
year. Brian Callahan, we finally have an offensive-minded coach. Titans are taking the AFC South.
See,
Speak on that. Like, you guys also hired Bill Callahan, his dad, as the offensive line coach. And Bill Callahan's one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. And you guys really need offensive line help.
Oh,
So,
that was our weakness last year. I mean, ultimately we have the weapons to succeed, and really we just no O-line, and it's hard to get anything going when you don't have an offensive line. It doesn't matter how good Henry is. If edge rushers are getting the quarterback in 2 seconds, what are you going to do? I just think the offense is going to take the next level. Our defense has already been solid. Titans are a team to look for next year.
so how long do you guys have DeAndre Hopkins for? Is it
3 more years.
3 more years? That's crazy.
Yeah, Henry's a pending free agent. Also, I think we're going to make a lot of splashes in free agency this year because we
I
do
can
have
see that.
$104 million in cap space, especially if we let Henry walk.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's time that you do because I've
agree.
seen the regression from him. I mean, he's just not the same running back that he was like even 2 years ago. I don't know if it's just because of how they're using him or if it's just because of his career as a whole as of right now. But
He's had way too many touches
Yeah.
because of how great he was, and then ultimately with no offensive line, he's significantly regressed. I love him. I wish he retired a Titan, but I'd like to see him to go to a contender to finish his career. And Tyjae Spears is a perfectly fine alternative.
Going into the draft, Tyjae Spears was my underdog running back. He was the guy that I wanted the most, and you guys are lucky to have him. I think he's a great guy.
Yeah, I'm going to pick a different person. Obviously, just going off that, though, there's clearly a huge youth movement in the NFL.
Yeah.
We have a lot of old coaches that are getting fired, Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick, which I understand because they are getting old, and I think NFL owners want to get someone young, just revitalize their teams. Some big storylines, obviously you have Jim Harbaugh, who's going to get paired with Herbert. That's going to be interesting to see. Gerard Mayo, huge shoes to fill with Belichick.
Yeah.
And then Ben Johnson staying in Detroit. However, I have Antonio Pierce. I think that he completely changed the Raiders. I mean, you could tell the players under McDaniels, they weren't willing to play for him. Their offense was sluggish. Their defense was horrific. But then when Pierce got hired, their defense suddenly completely turned around. I mean, the Raiders were actually the last team to beat the Chiefs. And then the Chiefs went on that insane run to win the Super Bowl. But they were the last team to actually beat them. And I think they held them to, maybe 10, 17
Killed
points,
him that whole
something
game.
like
It
that.
was on Christmas Day.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, just going by some of the numbers, Crosby, he actually recorded 9.5 of his 14.5 sacks in the final 9 games under Pierce. So I think that he's just completely vitalized that team. I mean, you still have Devontae Adams. Don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. Obviously, they still have Aiden O'Donnell. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see. I think he is definitely an underrated hire.
Yeah, I believe so too. There was actually a point, I forget who said it on social media, but they pretty much said that they were going to walk away from the team if they didn't
Crosby.
sign him. It was Crosby?
It was Crosby.
Okay, I had a feeling it was him, but yeah, he's just a complete locker room guy, very good personality. The way he coaches is definitely unlike, it almost reminds me a little bit of Dan Campbell. Not a lot, but I mean, it's just something there about him that kind of reminds me of that, I don't know, courage, I guess you could say, about how he handles the management and the gameplay. I really admire that. But what do you think he's going to do for this team? What do you think he's going to transform this offseason for them?
Well, I think mainly he has to focus on the offense. Obviously, on defense, you still have guys like Crosby. You have Kunch, who played really well at the end of the season. But I think really they have to address the offense. They have to address who they're going to have at quarterback, and they need to address the offensive line. They had that, I think his name is Zamir White, that they had at the running back position. I think he played very well at the end of the season, but I think mainly they need to address the offense, quarterback position specifically.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I know some people don't like J.J. McCarthy that early, but
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
thank you. Absolutely not.
I don't know. I wouldn't be completely against it if they. I mean, obviously yes, there's better guys, but I wouldn't be completely against it if he went there. But another free agent that they could possibly get, T. Higgins, I think would be a perfect fit there. But before you think about receivers, you got to get the quarterback situation. So you can't really go much in depth there because there's not really a whole lot there in the free agency market. They all went last offseason and the one before. So they're going to be heavily focused on the draft. But yeah, that'll be an interesting team to see within the next few years.
As you know, as a Falcons fan, I'm very excited for Raheem Morris. I mean, he's coached the Falcons before. He was 4-7, but you can't really hold that to him. But I mean, I'm excited. He's a defensive-minded coach, and the Falcons went from 27th in defense in 2022 to 11th in the rankings for 2023. And we have all the weapons in the world. We have Bijan, Kyle Pitts. You don't think Kyle Pitts?
I don't think he's good.
He was an 1,000-yard receiver his rookie year.
Yeah, but what has he done since?
Because
Nothing,
Arthur
because
Smith
we
is
haven't had a
incompetent.
Arthur Smith, I mean, yeah, as a Titans fan,
I mean,
it sucks.
I mean, why, when you have Bijan and Jonnu Smith, are you running a jet sweep with Jonnu Smith? It just
it's
Yeah,
blows
that's-
my mind.
that's
but
terrible.
He's
Excuse me.
gone. It's all he's
The
over
bad man is
to
gone.
the Steelers to ruin another team for a couple of years.
Ugh.
But I think it's going to come down to the draft. What are we going to do with our pick? Do we pick a quarterback, which I hope we do? What quarterback are we going to pick? I would like a dual threat quarterback. I think that would open up the offense a ton, as we already have so many weapons, and I hope that he keeps the defense like really top, because we had, I mean, Jesse Bates, who
Yeah.
in my opinion was the best safety.
I think so,
even though
too.
he didn't get first team All-Pro, which
Snub.
it's a whole nother can of worms, but I'm excited to finally be out of that 7-10 just hump right there. I hope we make the playoffs, but I'm excited to see what he can do. And they are changing it now where the head coach and team is now reporting to the owner rather than the CEO of, like, it sounds the same, but Arthur Blank is the owner, and he for a while wasn't really in on what Arthur Smith was doing and everything, but now there's a lot more connection, so I'm just excited to see them hopefully make it back to the playoffs. That's all I want.
What pick are you guys?
8.
8? Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. You guys are gonna have a good pick.
Isn't that the third year in a row you guys are picking 8?
Yeah.
Yeah, because Pitts
Yeah.
was.
And
Oh yeah.
I feel like we've hit on those picks.
Yeah, you have.
We just had so many holes to fill up that I mean, taking
couldn't
Ritter
properly
was a
utilize it.
horrible mistake. But
What do you think of Justin Fields?
Yeah, I
the
was just about to
possibility of
ask
that.
I would love
Oh,
that.
that's
I would
so
love that.
intriguing.
If I think he can run the ball clearly, and I think he can throw the ball really well too. One, he never had time to throw the ball when he's with the Bears, and I think the Bears aren't really a team where you develop a quarterback. So I feel like
Yep.
if he has a lot of weapons to throw to, I mean, we've seen great catches by London, Pitts, and Bijan. So it's not like he's got to fit it perfectly in there. And having an 11th ranked defense to kind of anchor you down, I hope the front office can make some moves. We haven't made a ton of moves other than Jesse Bates, really. So I hope we can sign another big person.
So, hypothetically, what would you be looking at for Fields? Hypothetically.
It's tough. I would get rid of Algier because he was great. He was in 1,000-yard rushing as well, but Bijan just.
I think he's like you're gonna be your franchise player.
If you keep Patterson, you got to pick between one of those three, and I don't think they're going to want Patterson. So I mean, I would.
Realistically, like what, Algier in like a second and a fifth, probably?
And you'll
Yeah.
have 2-2s if Ridley re-signs with Jacksonville
Yeah,
too.
that's really good, which I think he will. I mean, they had
Yeah.
had a good enough
Likely.
season.
100%
so that'll be
he
good.
will.
I would get rid of that because we have a pretty young defense, quote unquote. I mean, like Calais Campbell, obviously, he's nobody young, but I think, I mean, I wouldn't want to give up too much, but I think we should kind of go all in on that. I don't think an opportunity like that's going to come around too often.
Yeah, I think that's a good fit. Ben, don't break that offer for sure. I think if you get rid of Algier, that's definitely the better pick between the other two running backs. They might want to reach for a receiver.
Yeah,
But-
I feel like we could give up Jonnu Smith for a bag of chips. I would be fine with that.
Oh, Jonnu.
We do have Kadero Hodge, Mac Hollins, Scotty Miller, I believe. They're all like
They're decent.
all right, but
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody wants them that bad.
No,
You know,
I that's what I'm saying. I think they would try and reach for London.
I don't want to give them up,
Yeah.
and I don't think they should.
I don't think so
if
either.
anyone's leaving, as much as I would hate to say it, it would be Pitts. Just because he's like a receiver, you can find another one like him, and he can't really block. So it would suck, but if it means a chance at like a really good quarterback, a franchise quarterback, I would take it.
I mean, yeah, I would too. I think they would definitely take him as well. you'd probably get Komet in exchange. But
Or you could draft Bowers.
yeah, you
having
could.
the eighth
Georgia
pick
boy.
too, it
Oh, yeah,
there's a lot of
that's
conflicts,
great.
like what to do. You know, do you stay do you go for like Penix, who of course injury problems,
Right.
but I don't know what they're gonna do. I just hope they don't. I feel like you can't screw it up, but I felt like that in the past, the Super Bowl, and they screwed it up. So I'm hoping something goes right.
That's all we can really hope for is for something to go right.
I think for me, looking in that same division, I think Dave Canellis and the Panthers are an interesting
Yes.
one. I just think, I don't say you go full rebuild, but you almost have to.
Yeah.
Like, you have Thielen at 33, 34 as your one receiver. Other than that, you have Mingo, who can't get any separation at all. You have DJ Chark, who has flashes, you know, like he can be a good wide receiver too. But that offensive line is going to get Bryce Young killed. Like, besides Moton, who had one sack allowed at right tackle, Icky is like a turntable at the mall. He just watches Bryce Young, you know, get tackled every play. You have Corbett, I believe, at left or right guard. I don't know exactly which one.
I think it's left.
Okay, I don't watch the Panthers.
Right, it's right, right.
I don't know if any- I don't know if any-
Sorry, Joe, maybe.
Your own fans don't even watch them.
But I feel like in order for the Panthers to make this work, Canellis can't be like Frank Reich could be a yes man to Tepper.
Oh, yeah, and that's honestly, that might be their biggest downfall is their owner.
Yep.
Because, like, between Frank Reich and Tepper, Reich wanted Stroud.
So did Matt Rule. That's why he got fired.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. And I forget when they re-signed his contract, but he's going to be there for a while, and it's just going to be a rough setting for them. He's honestly, I think he might be the worst owner in the league. But I truly do like where Dave Canales is going. I feel like he had success back-to-back years with Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield, and I feel like he's really going to help mold Young into the quarterback that he was in college. The only thing is, as you mentioned, there's almost no offensive weapons there. So they're really screwed this draft because they don't really have a good pick for a while. And they need pretty much an entirely new offense. They might need to trade Burns just to get somebody good on offense. Who would be willing to take him? I don't know, because every time they say they're open for trades, they just lock up Burns every time. So I don't know what they're going to do, but they have to make a move sometime.
I also think that defense has potential, especially with
Yeah.
Ejiro Evero at D coordinator. Like, he was being looked at for other defensive coordinator jobs, which means he's sought after. And the talent you have on defense isn't bad. Like, if they bring back Burns, that's an edge rusher, obviously. You have Derek Brown, who had the most tackles in the NFL. You have J.C. Horn, who, when he's not injured, is good. Same with Jeremy Chin, Frankie Louvu. Like, Frankie Louvu, I think, had a really good year last year. Like, he really just came out of nowhere to really, and Shaq Thompson got injured early in the year, and I think that, like, those guys right there, you have the same defensive coordinator running the same system, which helps. But I just think if Canellis wants to come in and, like, really make an impact, I think they don't have much in cap. I think they have like $28 million. So I feel like getting something in free agency has got to be like the top.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be their top priority. That team for like the past few years, it feels like 10 years, has just not been on a good slope. They really haven't made any impressive moves. I mean, I don't even think they got that much compensation for when they traded McCaffrey. So, and that was a huge missed opportunity for them.
Same with Moore. They gave up more.
Yeah, they gave up more. It's just nice pun, which is ridiculous. That goes back to Tepper being the worst owner. I mean, I really don't know how they're going to fix it with him still being there, but it's not like they can do anything to get away from him.
And
So
another thing to look at is their new GM was a linebacker in Carolina. I'm not sure if Tepper was there yet. But
He was not.
Okay. But I still feel like that tie to Carolina, Tepper could string like, oh, you were here, remember? You know how it was. And that's going to be a yes man type thing, I feel.
yeah, That's really unfortunate for teams to just fall back on that. But I mean, I know there's a number of coaches out there that have been sought at. Like Harbaugh is a huge one. I feel like that's a grade A hire. I really look forward to that. I don't know if he's going to have any problems because of his allegation that he had, where he was out for a game or two. I can't imagine that's going to be any problem here. I don't think he will. He didn't when he was in the league beforehand. But I really do feel like he's going to turn that team into a competitor against the Chiefs. It's going to be either the Chargers or the Chiefs winning that division for the next few years to come. I forget if they do have anybody on hand besides Keenan Allen, because I know he is. I mean, I know they have Mike Williams and Palmer, but I'm just not really set on Keenan Allen for that team. I feel like they should start to step away from him. I know a lot of people have said the same thing too, but he gets injured and he's getting up there in age and he's costing you quite a bit of money. Plus, you did just draft a rookie, which I'm blanking on his name because he was Quentin Johnston. Yeah, he was very forgettable. He was the worst rookie receiver.
I think he's gonna have a career resurgence. Personally,
I think so too. Everybody's been saying that.
I think it was just because of the Staley era. I think Harbaugh's just offensive system, and he's just the quarterback whisperer. I think the Chargers offense I think they should hold on to Keenan Allen personally, but Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Quentin Johnston, I expect him to take a huge leap next year. That Chargers offense is going to be special.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be huge.
Could even draft Bowers at 5.
Yep.
And just put a tight end in there that is just dominant. Like if you put Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Quentin Johnston with Brock Bowers, with Harbaugh and Justin Herbert, their offensive line isn't bad.
That's terrifying.
It's
Like,
just always
that's-
injuries.
Yeah. Plus the talent they have on defense, like it's like you said, it's going to be Chiefs or Chargers.
Yeah, and if they do get a generational tight end like Bowers, I mean, at least in my opinion, when I've been watching him for like the past few years, I like him better than Pitts when Pitts was in college. If they get him, then it's just, I feel like they're going to have the upper hand against the Chiefs because the Chiefs don't really have a receiver.
Right.
Like, no set receiver.
Kadarius Toney.
Hey, that's their best defender. I don't
Rashid
know.
Rice, though.
Yeah, Rashi Rice is like
That was a good pick.
a bright spot in a dark place kind of deal.
And they're Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, which is, it's just ridiculous to hear that.
Could you also make the argument that the Chargers could swap with the Cardinals at 4 and take Marvin Harrison Jr.?
That would be interesting.
That would be crazy.
That would be bold.
Or could the Cardinals pick a tackle and Marvin Harrison is just like given to the Chargers?
I don't know if
I don't think he
they're
falls
gonna
out of the
take a tackle
top
that
3.
early.
I
that
don't
depends
think
on
so either.
What the Bears do.
I feel like the Bears are going to stick at 1. I know a lot of people.
The Fields.
They'll
Yeah.
take Caleb.
Caleb.
I think he's a bust. I'm sorry. I know that's odd.
Yeah, but that's the Chicago way.
It's going to be another kind of Bryce Young, like,
Bryce Young,
It's
Stroud.
gonna be
Yeah, I just
either or.
not
I
sold.
think first deal of business for the Chargers is to get rid of Austin Eckler. I know he's like a
He
great,
had a
like
down
popular
year.
fantasy pick, but I mean that guy has just lost a step. You can just tell ever since that injury. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the Packer game when he had that big
Yeah,
run.
he was visibly slower.
Exactly, nobody within 10 yards of him, and he was just like moving at half speed. It looked like. So plus now he signed a contract. You know, it cost him money. I think you got to get rid of him.
Yeah, they might also cut Mike Williams just to get cap space too. Wow. They might have to cut like Bosa and everything, or like Lomac. They're pretty deep in the
Oh
cap.
yeah,
Yeah,
I've
they're
heard
really
that.
like in deep trouble
Yeah.
with their cap.
Yeah.
I've heard them talking about dropping Khalil Mack.
He's looking for trades.
Yeah, they
might
I mean,
have
he's
to.
pretty old now, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's
he
been
is.
he's been in the league for a minute now.
And he didn't really have that good of a season after his 6-sack game. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think he had a sack for like the next 4 or 5 weeks or something. He was just on a decline. And then for Joey Bosa, that's kind of hard to hear him leave. I don't know if maybe if you trade him for like a decent package, then I could kind of consider, but I just feel like when I think of the Chargers, I think of Joey Bosa.
Yeah, he's
so,
stuck around.
Yeah, he's arguably, I think it's between him and Derwin James for their best defensive player consistently. So I don't know if they would want to get rid of him per se, but I mean, their cap space is not the best. I feel like they are one of the worst teams. Yeah.
It's like negative 40 almost.
Oh wow! I didn't know
I
it was. I didn't know it was that bad. I think
It's kind
bad.
of easy to get over
It's negative
the camp.
45.
Yeah, they have to make like 3 moves and then they're fine. But
Well, yeah, because they have Khalil Mack at 17 and a half, Bosa at 15, Keenan Allen at 18, Mike Williams at 17, Derwin James at 12, Corey Linsley's still making money,
he's retired, isn't he?
Yeah.
So that'll come off the books. They can
Yeah.
just outright cut him.
Wow.
but still, that's
Still, you're gonna have to make a cut on
and
defense.
Herbert's contract hasn't kicked in yet.
Yeah, no, that hasn't either. But I think under Harbaugh, I mean, they're just a team to look out for. Once
Yeah.
they figure out this cap problem, like I said, you probably lose Khalil Mack, but in the end, it's a 32-year-old edge rusher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not that big of a loss. Yeah.
They're scary next year for sure.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I'm definitely going to be on the lookout for that team. But as I said, I know there's a slew of other coaches, but before we move on to our next topic, I really do want to talk about these three and where they could potentially go with Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, and Mike Vrabel. I know there's no openings anymore for these teams, or for these coaches, rather, but I had the hypothetical situation if the Packers were to step away from Matt LaFleur within the next few seasons, because I know I know Chris Pittner, the host for the Tuesday shows, he does not like Matt LaFleur.
Boy,
So,
I don't know about that one.
which I don't either. I think
I can see it.
He completely
Oh, so you're one of them
See it.
too, huh?
Last semester, I said he was one of the worst.
Oh,
this was
God.
before the Packers
Oh my
went on their
goodness.
Yeah, he outclassed Mike McCarthy in the playoffs, though. You have to remember that.
thing. That's true, but
Is that
I
difficult?
feel like a lot of his
That
like
is such
his fame or
horrible
whatever.
take. I'm sorry. I'm just blown away by that. I'll have to talk
He-
with Chris after.
I feel like he let Aaron Rodgers do a lot.
Yeah, he was definitely
I
a
feel like-
yes man in that era. I won't deny it. But I mean, for this past season, what he was able to do that was basically his first year as a head coach when you put it in perspective. So it was pretty good. I mean, you make the playoffs, you have a first year starter quarterback. I think they did good with him, but if they just keep running into dead ends, eventually they're gonna get rid of him. So, I mean, you can only lose in the playoffs for so many years. So, I mean, I'll keep it open for you guys as to who you think would be the better coach in that regard, but I think it's pretty obvious.
I mean, of the three, I think it has to be Vrabel.
Yeah.
So he's taken an advisory role with Wisconsin now, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
But of the difference between Vrabel and those two is Carroll and Belichick. Their time's up. Pack your bags. You're 70 years old. Sail off into the sunset. Vrabel, as a Titans fan, I love Vrabel. I am so shocked he did not get hired, and the fact that he's not a head coach in the NFL is just bewildering to me. But in this hypothetical, Vrabel should most definitely be the clear-cut option.
I believe so too, yeah. When you're talking about young age, and I don't think he was really that bad of a coach in Tennessee.
Took us to the AFC Championship with Ryan
Yeah.
Tannehill.
Yeah. I mean, he had a good run there, but and when they fired him, I was shocked.
I don't
But-
think it was because of the coaching. I think it was because he didn't get along with Robinson and
Yeah, there was a lot of
Oh.
rift between management. So after we fired John Robinson last year, we hired Rand Carthon, and Amy Adams and Rand Carthon wanted the team to go X way. He wanted the team to go other way, and it just wasn't because of his ability. And then the whole season, there was just this whole rift there. But Vrabel is a fine head coach. I think he's an above-average head coach, and I was thoroughly shocked that he wasn't hired.
Wow.
I think there's part of it that I think he wants to follow like Belichick and be kind of like a GM a little bit, because like you can kind of sense that when, of course, they traded AJ Brown and that hasn't ended well for them. But that whole entire thing, like since then, he's kind of tried slightly being the GM. They were in a tough spot cap-wise where they kind of, needed to go into a little bit of a rebuild. And I think Vrabel was trying to kind of push that winning window up a little bit further when there was probably no chance that they were going to win a Super Bowl.
Well, and that's exactly the problem with Belichick too,
Yeah.
is because he wants complete control. Like he wants to be the GM and he wants to be the coach too, which is why he probably didn't get any offers or didn't get hired anywhere, because he's not a very good GM. I mean, we saw what happened with the Patriots. They have no talent on that roster. It's clear that he just basically drafted them into oblivion. So Jerod Mayo definitely has a heavy uphill battle ahead of him.
I like what the Patriots have defensively, I guess, but like for Atlanta, like they have Terry Fontenot, who's drafted really well. I mean, you said that, we said that, but like Belichick just didn't want to really work with another guy. He wanted to control the operations.
Yeah.
So
Belichick, I feel like he's kind of earned the right. I mean, we've obviously seen what he's done, but then again, you had the greatest quarterback of all time. What you were saying about like the Mac Jones, that really shows that like he kind of mailed it in. And it's, again, he's old. Like he's very old. I think it might be time that he just is done.
Yeah. I don't think, if he's not going to get anyone to sign him next year, I think he's done for sure. He's just very, very old. Plus, he's not really that good anymore. But with that being said, we're going to move into our third topic, Hawks and hockey. Yes, I'm so excited for this. Now, does anybody want to start with giving an update on their team?
I'll start.
Oh, yes.
The big Flames guy.
So, my team, the Calgary Flames, just moved up ahead of the Seattle Kraken.
I hate
in
you for
the
that.
standings, as well as I believe it was Mackenzie Weegar just scored a hat trick at I think it was 31 or 32. It was his first hat trick. So, they were on, like I said, they went on a 4-game winning streak, and I think they lost one. They play the Sharks, I believe it's tonight, which they're 14 and 32. So hopefully we can break that kind of 4-piece, win-losing kind of chunks.
I think if you're going against San Jose, that's not going to be a challenge. I mean,
No. But then again, they have lost to worse teams, as I've been looking at their record recently, so I don't know. We'll keep it up, as well as the rookie, but I'll talk about that a little more later when we get to that topic.
Now, for your team, is there any holes that you see as of right now? Are you worried about your offensive rotation or your goalie or?
Jacob Markstrom, looking at the stats, I don't know. There were a couple of injuries that I saw recently, which obviously doesn't help the team, but I don't know. Outside of our rookie, we don't have a whole lot.
Yeah. You guys aren't really the more prominent teams in the
No.
league, so I feel like you guys aren't anywhere near competing.
No, it's going to take time.
Yeah.
It's just,
You guys are in that middle stage of rebuilding, and I don't know. It's kind of difficult for them. They're just not really they're not there yet, and I don't think they have. They haven't been there for a while, to be
No.
honest. So it's going to take some time for them, but I do like their rookie as well, which you will touch on when we get there. But Creston?
The Wild had a week.
Yes, please.
They have won 3 in a row. 2 of those games were on the road. They scored 5 goals on Monday against the defending champ Vegas in Vegas. Like I said, 3-game win streak. They've scored 5, 3, and 2. The schedule coming up, I see some mid teams on here. We have Arizona, Buffalo, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Seattle coming up. They have 4 out of their next 6 on the road, but I don't really see that as a big problem. I think that a person who has stepped up recently is Brock Faber. He
Yeah.
has 13 points in the last 10 games.
Good rookie.
Yep, amazing rookie. Kaprizov is on the cusp of 50 points this season. I just think that Faber has 4 goals and 29 assists. Obviously, he's a passing type guy, but he's a defender. So I just feel like having that on your team is just an immense help. Fleury has been actually playing quite decent, knock on wood,
Yeah.
lately. But Gustafson's doing pretty well, depending on the game. But I just feel like right now I don't know what just happened, but I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to enjoy it while it lasts. And pretty excited last week, I'd say.
Absolutely, yeah. And shout out to Fleury for being one of only 4 other goalies to play in 1,000 games.
Yep.
That is a high achievement. I mean, and the fact that it only like 3 or 4 other goalies have made it to that is crazy to think of. I honestly think the number would be higher, but still. An achievement nonetheless. And as you said, I don't know what clicked with the Wild this week, but I'm just so happy that they were able to fix it on offense.
I also will say that in the Chicago game and the Pittsburgh game, the top performers were the goalies, which
is rare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not a bad thing to have, especially like when you're scoring 3 and 2 goals. That's a pretty good thing to have. We did have a little bit of a scare in Chicago, I will say. That 2-1 win, but it's a division game in Chicago. It's always going to be tough.
Yeah.
So
Those are typically a little bit closer.
Staying in the division, Nashville went 1-1 since our last episode. We had a thrilling win against the Coyotes last week. We were down 2 goals with about 11 minutes to go, and then we had a goal from Tommy Novak and Flip Forsberg to send it overtime, and Ryan McDonough hit a game winner. I watched that whole game. It was pretty thrilling. And took a tough loss last night. We were up 2-0 against the Devils. Unfortunately, the Devils' offense in the third period just stepped up, did what they had to do. Jack Hughes is very scary.
Yeah.
They ended up winning 4-2, but like I said last week, if you're looking for a good team that's the definition of mid, Nashville, dead middle in the division, 1-1 since we last talked, and I'm sure we'll be 1-1 going into the next episode.
I was actually, I caught a glimpse of the ending of the game last night while I was working on a project. And Sierra, who used to be on this show, is a big Devils fan. So she had it like on her laptop right next to her. And I saw the open net score. And from there, I knew it was over.
Yeah,
but
4-2 at that point, minutes.
yeah, that was, I mean, what is the biggest hole? I mean, you guys had like you said, a midweek. What is something that you can look for them to change?
Saros has definitely gone through a rough patch recently. He had a tremendous year last year as an all-star. This year hasn't been quite his best. We gave up 4 goals. 4 goals against the Coyotes. The first meeting with them, we gave up 7. Last night, giving up 4. Obviously, one of them an Netter. But overall, our defense just this year hasn't been where we like it to be, and it's also just a combination of lackluster defense and a lot of youth. We have a very, very young team. Evangelista is a guy to look out for in the near future. But honestly, just fixing those holes and just letting the youth develop, they're definitely on the up in future years. So fringe wildcard team this year, but like I said, 2 to 3 years, give it time.
Yep.
We'll be back at the top of the Central.
I believe so too. I usually do have hope for Nashville. I mean, like I said, it seems every other year they're like a playoff team and not. But I really do feel like you guys have the potential to go on the right direction sooner rather than later.
Yeah, my team, the Chicago Blackhawks, not looking good. Obviously, took a loss to the Wilds.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yep. But yeah, last 3 games, I mean, they've been pretty close. 2-1 against the Wild, 4-3 against the Rangers, and 4-2 against the Canucks. I mean, they're there, but I mean, without Connor Bedard, their offense is just lacking. So apparently, he is supposed to return next week after being out with a jaw injury. So that's obviously going to be great for them. But in terms of like any playoffs, I mean, it's just not going to happen. They're last in the division, 7-game losing streak. It's just not great.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe you guys get the number 1 again. I doubt it, but because I don't think if you guys are lottery accessible, I doubt you guys get it back-to-back years. But, I mean, yeah, it's definitely getting closer to looking towards the future rather than the present. And I believe it was either yesterday or the day before that they said that Bedard was practicing with no pads or little pads. So he's definitely on his way. I still can't believe that it's almost like 2 months since he last played if not longer. And he's still leading in Rookie of the Year votes. At this point, I just think it's popularity because, I mean, Faber has been up there and he's still not. I mean, he's in top 5 in voting, but
And
he's
Marco
still not
Rossi,
up
too.
there. Yeah, I was going to bring up Mark Rossi too, but the fact that he's still up there is amazing. But
I do think a lot of it is popularity, but at
Yeah.
the same time, he is leading in points and goals.
yeah, and you can't fight with stats, but it's still like it's just crazy how he's still leading in that. It really does go to show that he's a one-of-a-kind talent. But is there any direction that you're looking for the Blackhawks to change in the future?
Well, I think with just getting Bedard back,
Yeah.
right there is already a step in the right direction. I think they have to go more offensive minded. I think that they don't seem to be scoring a lot of goals, and obviously you need to score goals to win. So I think that they need to focus on getting a lot more offense. You got to have someone to pair with Bedard to initiate the offense. I think Dickinson has done a pretty good job of that. He's third in the team in points, and he's the best plus minus on the team. So I think he's done all right, but it's not translating to wins.
I agree. If anybody wants to touch up on their team a little bit more before we move into our next topic, I'm all ears.
I would just say Bruins,
Yes.
they've lost 3 of the last 4. They lost 2 of the last 3 games since we talked last week. They went into a shootout last night against the Lightning. It was a big save, and they'll get with one of the best goalies in the league. And Bruins kind of got to get back on track here. They've got some difficult games against the Stars and the Oilers, obviously the Kraken, but they need to get it going.
Yeah.
The Panthers are coming right up on them. So.
I do like Pasternak, though. I will say that about the Bruins. He's the only thing I do like about that team. But with that being said, we're going to move into our next topic, which is early honors. The MVP race has shaken up a little bit in the NBA with Embiid being out of the race due to injury. And that just now puts in Doncic. I think he should have been in it before that. I mean, it's ridiculous that we had to wait for Embiid to get taken out in order for him to be put in, but I digress. With this topic, we may need to brisk it a little bit quicker than I would like. But yeah, I feel like this is a very interesting rule that they have implemented with the injury, because I know a lot of people were complaining about how that was a factor years ago. So I'm glad that it's being shown here with Embiid taken out. But Mason, would you like to start with the MVP race so far?
I'd probably go Jokic. And obviously, it's kind of a close race, but he just takes over games just instantly. He has got 32 games where he's got over 25 points, 5 or more rebounds, and 5 more assists in those games. It's just really insane. Like, I don't watch much basketball, but when I do watch him, it's easy to see, like, holy cow, this guy's really, really good. But that's just how I feel about it.
And he's almost like the new format of a successful player, with just like getting the ball around and also managing to get it and score. That sounds really like a bad description of what a good player is, but I mean, when you see him, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just giving the ball to players, getting triple doubles every night. That's the way to succeed in the position. And I really do feel like that is one of the key marks for being labeled MVP. So if he racks his third, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, Jokic is my number 2, but just speaking to him, I mean, 31.7 PER this year. I mean, he's absurd. Just easily the top center in the game. It's a shame with Embiid. I really, like you said earlier, I am a fan of the rule change. It encourages, more players to actually play games and sitting out. But Jokic is my number 2. I have to go with SGA. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
I respect it.
Strictly because, he's averaging, 31 points per game on a team that is so young, as I mentioned last week. I expect them to be 8 or 7 seed, and they're contending for a first seed, sitting currently at 2 in the West. And just not single-handedly carrying. He definitely has a great supporting cast, but I mean, in the final 5 minutes of a game, number 2 is getting the ball, and he just enters this zone where he's just unguardable. And watching him play, and just take over these games. I mean, he just hit a huge clutch shot against Orlando and told the fans to go home. Like, that's MVP behavior. So I think I got to go with Shea right now, but Jokic is close second.
Yeah, it's really refreshing to see him in the conversation. I mean, because usually every year it's like Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, and then insert name. But I mean, I'm really glad that he's getting recognition. He's definitely a top player. And I personally would like to see him win it, but I have somebody else that that I have predicted to win it.
Well, I personally 1,000% agree. I think that Shea deserves the MVP. He currently has 39 30-plus point games. Only Wilt Chamberlain, James Harden, and Tiny Archibald have more before the All-Star break. And it's not like he's just scoring. I mean, he averages 6.5 assists, 5.5 rebounds, and 2 steals, while shooting efficiently to average 31 a game.
54% of
And-
the field is, wow.
I mean,
Yeah,
just everything that
it's
he's
crazy.
done has translated to wins, and I think he deserves it right now.
I really do like the pairing of him and Holmgren. I feel like that's a really unique and good duo.
I'm going to go with Luka.
Yes.
I think that he has been somewhat quietly, I don't think he gets enough recognition for
I don't
what he
think so
does.
either.
I mean, Shea is great. I love his defensive side, but you don't see him dropping like 40, like 15 assists and like 11 rebounds. You just don't see that. And I think Luka really controls the pace of the game. I mean, everyone calls him slow and everything, but it works.
Yeah.
He can do it all. He is a bit of a defensive liability, but I feel like with the numbers he puts up, I feel like he should be MVP. I mean, the stats are just...
Yeah. People are not talking enough about how he put up that, I forget the exact number, but it was like 60-plus points, I mean, months ago. Like, that was one of the best offensive performances I've seen in a long time, the only other being Giannis when he put up the franchise record. And like you said, I really don't feel like Doncic gets enough credit for how he is, because if you take him away, I really do feel like that team completely falls apart. Yeah, they
They're
have
bottom
Irving.
5.
Yeah, they're just nowhere near. And to me, that's the definition of MVP.
I also agree with Luka. He's leading the NBA in points per game, third in assists, and he's second in 3 points made per game. That right there just shows that he can do like anything at any level. Like you said, he's pretty much a walking triple double. Him and Jokic are just like top tier in walking triple doubles. And as a point guard / shooting guard, getting 10 rebounds is kind of absurd, and he does it regularly. So I just think that's something to it.
Yeah, and consistency really is key for the sport. I mean, it's huge. If you're not consistent enough, you're not putting your team in the position that they need to be in, and that if you're not at that level, then you shouldn't even be in the conversation. Like, there's other people that were mentioned earlier in the year that were ahead of him that are just not consistent enough. But we're going to go really quickly around the room for Rookie of the Year. I feel like I already know the consensus, but we're going to do it anyway. You want to start, Kristen?
Yeah, I've got Chet.
Oh, wow, that's actually, I was not expecting that. Okay, I respect it, though.
I mean, it's Wemby. I do think Jamie Jaquez Jr. is a really good kind of dark horse, I guess you could say. I think he's fit in really well, but Wemby, it's kind of like, it's just, you can't beat it, man. He's generational.
Very true.
Yeah, I think Jaquez definitely deserves a little more recognition. Chet's a great pick, but it has to be Wembanyama.
Victor Wembanyama.
Yep.
7'4", dog.
Wemby.
See, and that's exactly what I thought it was going to be. I wish we could get to our mini game, but I guess we'll have to save it for next week. It's called Batter's Box. I'm sure you guys had a good layout, but unfortunately we're going to have to save it for next week. We have about a minute, so if you guys want to go for your final thoughts that quickly, go for it, but...
I'll go quick. I think Domantas Sabonis should be top 5 in MVP votings.
Interesting.
I mean, his double doubles and triple doubles, he is one that does not get enough credit for what he does.
Interesting. I'm going to have to talk to you about that later.
That's fine.
I think my last thing is, I don't know how true these are, but the LeBron to Golden State thing that I read today.
Oh, my.
Like, I don't know how that would work and what the Warriors would give up, but that's insane that they were trying to convince LeBron to come to the Warriors.
That's crazy.
And it would also ruin his legacy.
Yeah, that would have been crazy. Ron Holland Jr. will be a Memphis Grizzly next year, and thus beginning the Grizzlies dynasty.
And really quickly, I would just like to add, I think the San Francisco 49ers players are embarrassing themselves, with the lineman throwing trash on his other lineman, and then Shanahan should have coached the players to know the overtime rules. So,
Off of that, the 49ers should not have fired Steve Wilkes.
I agree. I wanted to talk about that
100%
earlier, but I
agree.
forgot. And with that being said, that was another episode of Hawk Talk here on Wednesday. Hope you enjoyed, and we're going to get you right back to some more music here on 91.7 The Edge. Enjoy.